Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith Live, seen Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. right here on the Consequence of Sound Instagram. We're tackling the big issues around the world, how it relates to the music industry, and especially on an artist's work. And that's especially what we're going to be talking about today, because I have got Bardo Martinez from Chicano Batman, who have a brand new record called Invisible People. Welcome, sir. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it looks nice and sunny out there. I'm a little bit jealous as it's thundery and overcast here in Louisville, but that's how it goes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's always sunny out here. It never rains in Southern California.
That's what I hear.
Anyway.
That's what I hear. I'm glad to have you on. Like I said, Chicano Batman, you guys have got a great new record with Invisible People that's out. And I know it hits on some stuff that happens to be going on. I don't know if you'd say it's specifically about the things that we're experiencing in the world right now. And I want to get into that here in just a little bit. But as I read your backstory, the one thing I do see is a history of protests, coming from you all, being part of protests. And I think I read that a little bit in your bio. No stranger to movements anyway and taking to the streets. I got to ask, coming from your point of view, especially where you are in the country, do these feel different than they may have in the past for you?
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot bigger now. I feel like, I was listening to some hip hop music, some new hip hop stuff, and some people are just calling it like the end of days, just kind of like looking at it like an apocalypse type of thing. And, I just see the truth in some of that in relation to, basically everybody's affected. You can't really hide anymore, So it's like, basically we have the world in a phone, right? You just open up your phone, you go wherever, and you're kind of connected to like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And therefore you're just exposed to way much, like all this information way quicker. So you can't escape what's happening. And I feel like it's really profound right now. I think the Black Lives Matter movement is, it questions the hierarchy of race in this country that's always been there. It's like a boiling pot that's had the lid over it for since the civil rights era. Since the civil rights era was born, the state really and the powers that be have only worked that much harder to diminish it, to get rid of it. But it hasn't died because, like, the truth is the truth. People are oppressed, and people are going to rise up against their oppression, just like heat rises from a pot. It's just bound to happen. And it's interesting that it happened, in a world pandemic. This is happening, and it makes sense because when people are oppressed the most, when the state has the most authority, people are going to say, no, this is not, there's more issues involved. There's things that are affecting us more adversely than, it's unequal. It's all, all the things that are being said, there's so many different perspectives out there and so many are valid. So, yeah.
Yeah. You even said at some point, or one of your band members, I should say, Latin musicians and fans supporting Black people in meaningful, tangible ways, which is also, sort of an interesting thing because, I'm absolutely not taking anything away from Black Lives Matter and the movement right here. But I also see that as more than just Black people, that it is, people of color and minorities and everything else. But it sounds like you all specifically said, no. We're pushing the conversation straight in that direction. Do I have that right?
Not necessarily. I think that, just because we're a band called Chicano Batman, that doesn't mean that we're a band, composed of Chicanos or Latinos, that's just a band name, and I think that was always kind of the point. Like, yeah, like somebody could see me and, they'll perceive me as like, yo, this guy's a Latino, or, this guy's, whatever. But that was the point. Like, yo, it's like, it was kind of like, it is like a social experiment, because, we're just dudes who are playing music, plain and simple. And I think for me, it's about challenging those terms, right? Where does the term Latino come from? Why am I a Latino? Why is quote unquote this person white? Why is this quote unquote person whatever the term is? And I don't know. And I think it's time to challenge those terms, really. And it's time to put them under a microscope. And really, at the end of the day, these terms are really old. You know, they're terms that date back to the colonial era. You know, and before that, I mean, at the end of the day, how could I put it? Everybody's human. You know, we're all human,
Right.
and I think that's what people want. They just want to be recognized as humans, and recognized for the character, right? Not necessarily for whatever they look like.
Well, there's the lyric in the title track with Invisible People, with the concept of race was implanted inside your brain. That hit home with something I'd been thinking a lot about anyway, because a bit of what you're saying, I think, is what you're saying here. When I consider the way people talk about heritage, like if I were to trace my family, you'd find Scottish heritage or whatever. I was like, yeah, but what about their grandparents and their grandparents before there was a Scotland, before, that's the part that always does come back around to me, that, calling anyone Latino, calling anyone of Scottish heritage, it feels like we are also ignoring a few millennia that happened right before that as well, where it does all come back around.
I think that's a great point. I mean, the truth is that, we all know that Americans, American culture is very ahistorical. Living in a capitalist society, it's all about whatever's new, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's very easy. I don't know. It's not, how could I put it? It's not happenstance that nobody really knows their heritage, like at a certain point in our history, all that history got cut off, but got erased,
right.
And that makes sense because it benefits certain powerful groups. It also benefits, it's a dialectic, right? When Germans started migrating into this country, let's say, in the 1700s, creating a historical lens for the sake of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
They had to get rid of their Germanness. There's history of German people being hung, and lynchings of German people in America. Like that's a fact. And that could be traced to any certain immigrant. I don't even like using the word immigrant, because everybody migrated to this country at
Absolutely.
a certain point in time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Germans, Italians, Eastern Europeans, all these people who were basically looking for a better life, endured a lot of discrimination, a lot of violence, and they had to kind of like work their way into getting this term white, and this has happened for all kinds of people. It's Latinos are doing the same thing, have been doing the same thing. People in the suburbs out here working really hard. I know that I'm very connected to that reality because my family, they work really hard to get the things that they have, and a lot of people are not really trying to challenge the status quo and the way things are, or the terms that exist, because it's a mutual. You don't want to offend the power structure, because that's not in your best interest as a working class person who's trying to come up in the world. Just that's why there's no Spanish songs on this last record. It's like we have to come up in the world. We have to work. It's a dialectic. It's not a simple equation. It involves millions of people. Anyways, I'm straying for the purpose from I guess the points that we were just touching on, but yeah, it's very interesting, right?
Right. I mean, I think you are hitting on a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about in there too. You took the question further, and I appreciate that, because even that does. I mean, do I have this right? When I listen to Manuel's Story, that song, I mean, there may not be any Spanish songs on here, but that doesn't mean there isn't Spanish heritage or whatever. I mean, that's
right.
Can you talk about that song? Because that's a song that we are hearing about in many different ways, especially when you look at the current American administration and the president's stance on immigration and everything else. I mean, that's what you get a little bit of with this song, correct?
The drug war, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, totally. That's interesting. And I'm glad you asked that question because, my uncle is Colombian. He's from Cartagena, which is in the Caribbean, which is, and I'm not going to, I'm trying to keep in the conversation about heritage because that's what we're talking about. So, my uncle is my mom is, they're from the Caribbean. The Caribbean was a place where in the colonial era, Cartagena, the city of Cartagena, was a principal slave port for over, centuries, right? Since the colonial period, since the 1500s. The Spanish galleon, brought over, millions of slaves. And so the Caribbean is a very diverse place, just like somewhere like Salvador da Bahia in Brazil, just like the Dominican Republic, anywhere that basically existed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a call. That basically existed within the triangular trade, right? Between, basically the 13 colonies, Africa, and South America. That was the capitalist system at the time. Anyways, so my family has that heritage, that very mixed heritage. Obviously, there's a lot of native people in South America, the Caribbean, all the Africans from West Africa that were brought, all the Europeans that, I always, it's a funny thing where I tell my daughter, when we go on the Pirates of the Caribbean, when we go on that ride in Disneyland, I was like, yo, those are your ancestors everywhere. Those are, we come from those people. And it's, to be honest, it's true. I did my genetic test the other day and, last year. And it was like a mix of, I never knew I was like English, like 5% English or Portuguese, Spanish. I thought I would have more Spanish industry, but I don't. And I have a lot of native or basically native to the Americas, a lot of, and like 20% from Africa. So that's where my family's from, and anyways, my uncle, fast forward a few hundred years, anyways, I say all those things to kind of like talk about heritage and always kind of push for like the fact that it's always more diverse than we think, it's always more complicated. Our genetics kind of tell the story of the world and, anyways, going back to Manuel's story, my uncle was forced, basically he fled Colombia to Panama because of some drug biz that his brother got into. And so the cartel or whatever went towards, the closest source because my other uncle took off. And so it was just a story that he was telling me as we were just hanging out on an island across the shore from Panama, near Colón, Panama. And it's just so fantastic. I mean, I feel like, when you fast forward those 100 years, the population still looks like that. You see very, dark people with very, African features and very, native features, or very, you see light-skinned people. It's just a plethora of basically a plethora of people, of mm-hmm. diversity, within the context of a political situation, that of course is tied to American politics and American hegemony throughout the world, right? I mean, it's tough. Like most of my family can't come to the States. Like they don't have the I mean, it's Cartagena is a very poor place, but it's tourism is like the biggest industry there. And, it's just like the rest. It's just like the colonial history that was planted in the Americas continues. Like people, it's almost like, I don't know, it's connected in, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's a lot to process or to explain, but anyways, you got a little bit of that.
That's all things that I thought when I was young were going to be solved. I came up in the 80s and 90s and maybe after school specials weren't the same thing at that point, but we were talking about this in the same way that we were talking about Earth Day and everything else, and to be first in 2016 for what happened there and it becoming the conversation again about walls and whatnot. I think that's been the stupidest thing to me is that this is an issue at all, that, the invisible line that divides two countries is suddenly also an invisible line that can tell you, if you're going to be able to live another day or something like that on the humanistic side of things. I mean, it's bizarre. It's unfortunate. It's fucked up,
Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, totally, man. I mean, that's the reality. It's like, depending on where you're born, you have no, you don't have any choice, right? You're going to be born, you're going to be the person you are, and because of X, Y, and Z, you're going to be treated a certain way. Your whole life is going to be, attached to whether you grew up in Saudi Arabia or whether Iraq or West Africa or, East LA or, whatever it is, it's just, and I feel like a lot of the problems that we're having just really is really connected to the vested interests that we have and like all of us have in the privileges that we've all attained, or that we're born with. So, and it's complex. I really feel like, I think Toni Morrison said, the concept of white supremacy is rooted in like a really profound neurosis. And I think that's true. And I think not only does it has to do, it doesn't just apply to, quote unquote, white people. It applies to all of us, because all of us basically are born into a very complicated system that it's like, that's thousands of years in the making. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of hope in humanity because, we've been around for 3 million years as opposed to just 10,000 years, and in the majority of that time, humans lived along with, just lived naturally, just like, just like every other animal lives, and, it's something that I learned reading a book called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. I know Ishmael.
I've read that so many times. Wait, it's behind me. Yeah, it's all so down here.
Yeah, that's cool. That's amazing. And so I know, I kind of feel that you kind of have that perspective because you said it in a very kind of like almost poetic way that maybe a lot of people don't understand or really get, that, that it's really just perception. Right. all these things are just, perceived and constructed. Right. And all of us are just kind of enacting a story, as Daniel Quinn puts it. Right. But, like I said, like, humans have been we're enacting another story, before the agricultural revolution. Mm-hmm. Right. And they continue to do so around the world. But unfortunately, we live in a system, full of people that are, whether they know it or not, are hunting those people down, or destroying the rainforests, or, the everything we all know, the takers story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really think that all this, everything that's happening right now, from coronavirus to the Black Lives Matters movement, has everything to do with the taker story, because it all has to do with history and, and how we came to be this way,
how we came to be this way. Yeah. That's amazing. You don't find a lot of people who have read that. And I am going to pull it out here just for reference for anybody who's interested in this. Daniel Quinn, who passed away, I believe, last year, wrote an amazing series of books. And what, we're talking about here is Ishmael, followed by the story of B and My Ishmael, Beyond Civilization, and on and on and on and on. I do encourage anyone who's interested in what Bardo was just saying there to pick that up, because that's a book that changed my life as well.
No, totally.
Collect everything. So with everything you said, that sort of makes sense then why, like this Invisible People, the new Chicano Batman record, it's not an angry record. It could have been an angry record. But this isn't that. And it seems like maybe that was a decision that you could have made. Was that ever actually part of the conversation?
I think, to be honest, like I wrote a lot of most of the lyrics for all the songs. And, how can I put it? I'll also say that this record, just to include my brothers in the conversation, it was our most like, collaborative record. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wrote the lyrics, and I'll tell you that I was trying to be like edgy, and I was trying to be like, how could I put it, like songs like Manuel's Story, songs like Polymetronomic Harmony, and I don't know, I was trying to have an edge, and just like, but I'm not really an angry person, And I think within, like, my music is very, I think whatever I write usually is very like introspective, and you know, how could I put it? You know, it's like songs like The Way, for example, or Color My Life. They're very kind of Chicano Batman-y songs, where it's like, you know, hey, it's that guy in the tree just hanging out, you know. And honestly, that's kind of my vibe, you know. It's like I'm trying to enjoy life, you know, and I do enjoy life. And you know, my mom came from Cartagena, Colombia, and she's such a bright like soul and spirit, and you know, I'm very fortunate to have really been brought up by her, you know. You know, how could I put it? I can't help but to have like a beautiful day, you know, and I know, you know, not everybody feels that way, or that's not everybody's reality, but that's my reality, you know. And I don't know. I think it's also, as a musician, as an artist, that's part of my aesthetic, you know, that I've infused within Chicano Batman, I feel. And that's also, you know, joy. And this is something that I've been hearing within the Black Lives Matter movement, right? You know, it's like, you know, Black people have suffered a lot in this country, but, you know, the joy that Black people have is really indomitable. It's really you can't destroy that, you know, no matter how hard you try, because, you know, it's such a spiritual thing that's really, you know, it's holding on to like the essence of nature that every human has inside of us, you know. And I really do feel that all of us have inside of us, and not, you know, it's not just because you're Black or whatever. We all have it. I just, you know, the truth is though, and I'll say this truthfully as like a student of history, and you know, as a, you know, I'm kind of like an ethnomusicologist as well. I listen to a lot of music, and, you know, I got my master's in Latin American studies, and I did my thesis on Colombian music. I don't know. I've listened to a lot of music, and, you know, I love Black music, and it's always the same feeling, whether it's like in Latin America or whether it's, you know, in France, you know, like it's the rhythm is so contagious. The rhythm is beautiful. And I really feel, and this is something that I've talked to with my, you know, friends, you know, my brother Sonny, rest in peace, Ethiopian brother. He would always say, like, also my brother Ronnie D would say, you know, the music has a message. Like, the music is literally as a DNA. It's a blueprint of a message, of a way of life, you know, of movement. And movement is what keeps everything going. So we're all connected to that.
Yeah. No, it's not just that American music doesn't exist without Black music. It's that basically no music exists without Black music. So, and not to, you know, when I said it was not an angry record, that's not to take away that you are saying very important things and some very heavy things throughout the record, as we talked about with a few of the songs. If you mentioned a few of the other ones too,
right?
I do think in the title track you get a "fuck the system" line in there. So let's,
yeah.
You know, I don't want to paint that as like it's just a happy record.
Right.
Yeah, I really appreciate what is happening on this record. I appreciate the fun that I have just listening to it. If I just want to have fun with it too, I mean that's what you want out of any great record. I mean, you get that with Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On." He's saying a lot of stuff, or you can put it on and have fun. You know, that's
right.
Parts.
Sure, totally.
Yeah,
man. I really feel that, you know, music kind of embodies, you know, that all these things we're talking about, but it's not exclusive. That's the thing. It's not saying nobody, you know, it's not saying you can't dig into it, you know, just like the Black Matters movement is saying you can't dig into it if you're not this or that. I don't know, man. It's open to everybody, and like I really feel that, you know, like the spirit is in everyone, you know, and it's just a matter of like, you know, and it's work that we all have to do, you know, whether it's, you know, just being like macho and like, you know, you know, we all deal with problems, man. Like we're, you know, learning every day, you know, and I think it's just trying to open your mind, you know. It all comes back to that, you know. It's like so many people have said that, right? You know, I think of John Lennon. I think of, you know, all the greats say that, open your mind. So that's really at the root of it, I think.
Just got to get there. In the meantime, you guys have done a fantastic record once again with Invisible People. I send all the compliments your way. Bardo Martinez, thank you so much for joining me on this today and
Yeah,
talking
brother.
about all of this right here. Again, everybody watching the new Chicano Batman record, Invisible People, is out. Do check it out, and thank you so much for watching this one. And again, this series right here, Kyle Meredith Live, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. I will also be on WFPK at 6 p.m. with that show. So thank you so much. Bardo, it's been a pleasure.
Same here.
Yeah.
Take care, brother.